Great, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, great. So hello everyone from snowy Wales. Today I'll be talking about how horse sacrifices amongst the Baltic tribes between the Roman and medieval periods. So this research is part of my Marie Curie Bones project. Bones is a tortured acronym that stands for Baltic Paganism, Osteology, and New Evidence from Zooarchaeology. So this project is an international collaboration that spans 11 institutions across 5 countries. And our objective is to reassess how animals were used in rituals performed in Baltic cemeteries. And we're doing this using traditional zooarchaeology, isotope analysis, archaeogenetics, proteomics, and histology. But today, I'm going to be focused on some exciting brand new data that demonstrates that some of the sacrificed horses in these cemetery sites were actually imported from relatively far distances. So my research area is along the southeastern coast of the Baltic Sea, and it includes modern Kaliningrad in Russia, northeastern Poland, and Lithuania. So unfortunately, my data from Poland is not quite ready for prime time yet. So today I'm going to present data from Kolmi and Aleška in Kaliningrad, which generally date from the 10th to the 13th centuries, and then also data from Marvela in Lithuania. And this is the largest cemetery with horse sacrifices in the region, and it was in use from the Roman through the Viking Age. So horse sacrifices appeared during the period of Roman influence, and their use increases in popularity significantly during the Viking period. Then starting in the 13th century, Germanic crusading orders move in, and they begin to forcibly convert the old Prussians. Lithuanian groups resist conversion for quite some time, but they officially convert in about the 14th century, at which point in time horse offerings disappear from cemeteries. So what do we think we know about these horse sacrifices? So first of all, there's landscape and historical evidence suggesting that they were public rituals. And at some points in time, they may have involved elaborate horse races or events where a horse was run to exhaustion and forced into a small oval pit and then held down with large stones and buried alive. The deposition of whole horses is quite common, also common as parts of horses or horse riding equipment. And these types of deposits were common over a 1,000-year period. But what do we think we know about the horses themselves? So they were thought to be drawn from the local Tarpan population. Only male horses are thought to have been sacrificed. And even in cases where the horse is buried entirely separate to humans, these sacrifices are thought to be tied specifically to the death of important men in the community, probably warriors or chiefs. So the Bones Project is attempting to reassess all of this received wisdom. But today I'm going to focus specifically on where the horses were sourced from. And I'm going to use strontium isotope data from the horse teeth in order to address this question. So there have been several isotope papers already in the conference, so I'm going to breeze through this method a little bit quickly, knowing that we don't have much time. So strontium-87 is an isotope that forms from the decay of the radioactive isotope rubidium-87. And the ratio of strontium-87 to strontium-86 in an area's geology is determined based on the initial composition of the bedrock and also the age of the bedrock. So older geologies are more radiogenic, which means that they have a higher 87-86 strontium ratio, and younger geologies are less radiogenic, so they have lower ratio values. So how does strontium then find its way into horse teeth? Well, as the bedrock decays, it releases strontium into the local environment, which is then reflected in soil, vegetation, and drinking water. Then plants and animals that we eventually eat, they incorporate the strontium into their tissue, which is in turn incorporated into our bones and our teeth by substituting for calcium and bioapatite. So then to study mobility, Of horses, we sample tooth enamel. And we do that because tooth enamel is highly resistant to diagenesis. And it also mineralizes during the juvenile period and does not remodel. So it retains the strontium signature from childhood residents. So for our project, we sampled teeth from 74 horses. So ideally, we took the first and the third molar. We took both and sampled both because they represent the earliest and the latest mineralizations. So we can see movement during the juvenile period. But however, due to poor preservation at some of the sites, particularly Leshka and Kolmi, we often sample just whatever was available. And sometimes that was just splinters of enamel. So it is quite important also to understand the geological context of an area before embarking on this type of study. So unfortunately, there's been no large-scale isoscape mapping of the project area. So this is just a geological map, and the colors represent bedrock age. So the legend is organized with the youngest geology at the top in yellow. It's the Quaternary geology that we see in northeastern Poland. And then as you move down the legend, it gets older in terms of geological age. So based solely on the age of bedrock geology, in general, we would expect that strontium isotope values to trend from less to more radiogenic as you move from Poland north and east into Lithuania. So I should say, though, establishing appropriate local baselines is still key for this kind of study. So this figure represents our data from the 20 individuals sampled at Marvella. So the y-axis represents the strontium ratio values, and the distribution on the x-axis is organized by grave number. The blue box represents a previously reported local strontium baseline. And this is for the area, the general area around Kaunas, around Marvella. So the most striking point of this figure is the obvious highly radiogenic outlier. So this individual is such an outlier that it is difficult to see what's even happening with the other data at the site. So in fact, this value is suggestive of a juvenile period spent on pre-Cambrian aged rocks, so not anywhere in Prussia or Lithuanian territory. In fact, the nearest area with this highly radiogenic strontium signature is the Uppsala region of Sweden. Unfortunately, we don't have a carbon-14 date for this individual to confirm it yet, but I should say that many burials from the cemetery date to the Viking Age. So once we get the carbon-14 data back, we might have some interesting things to report. So we'll return to the Scandinavian connection in a minute. But next, I want to present the data from Kaliningrad. So unfortunately, we were not able to sample plants to establish a local strontium baseline for both these sites, which was originally planned, as these sites are located in Russia. So due to the current political situation, that plan was no longer possible. So this blue area, this local baseline, we're borrowing it from unpublished data from the nearby site of Whiskeyoughton. But again, we have highly radiogenic outliers that are certainly not local to the Eastern Baltic region. So these data are very new. In fact, the mass spec report for this individual from Kolmi was only given to me yesterday evening. But again, a Swedish origin is the most obvious conclusion. So the values are consistent with various parts of Sweden, again with the Uppsala region, but also consistent with areas in southern Sweden that are closer to Marvella. So oxygen isotope data from these horse teeth would be incredibly helpful to help us narrow down potential areas of juvenile residence. Hopefully we can carry on and get the funding for additional isotope research based on these initial results, but we don't have that as of yet. Additionally, the individuals from Kolmi and Aleshka could unfortunately not be directly dated due to poor organic preservation at the site. However, individuals buried nearby were radiocarbon dated directly to between the 10th and 13th centuries. So overlapping with the Viking Age, but also overlapping with the late Iron Age to medieval transition. So takeaways from this, from these initial data points. It seems like long distance transportation was a feature, but not necessarily a defining characteristic of what horses were chosen for sacrifice. Additional dating and also our data from our Polish cemeteries will also help us to understand how this, long distance trade or long distance importation of sacrificial horses may have changed over time and space. Another point is that regional mapping of biologically available strontium and really mapping of all of Central and Eastern Europe is key and would really provide more robust research networks. Third, multiple isotope proxies are needed for more robust results. Especially oxygen, as mentioned earlier, would be really helpful for trying to pinpoint where these horses may have been drawn from Scandinavia. And finally, between our upcoming isotope data, radiocarbon dating, and then also upcoming genetic data that's not quite ready to present yet, but will be shortly, our team in the Bones Project is really going to rewrite the narrative surrounding these Baltic horse sacrifices. So I want to say a quick thank you to our funders, the European Union and Cardiff University. Of course, none of this would be possible without my amazing project collaborators and all of my lab colleagues. And I'd like to have a final thank you to the conference organizers for putting on such a delightful conference. Thank you so much.